Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency's Incident Response Training Series. Today's event is a one-hour awareness webinar called IR 110, Introduction to Log Management. We're so glad you could join us today. Today, we have John and Mike as our instructors. John is a senior security consultant for Motorola Solutions with over 12 years of experience in the cybersecurity course development and instruction arena. He has supported the DHS/CISA CDM training program for over 4 years and has also supported the Department of State Information Assurance program. He's also served in the United States Navy, where he performed system security integration and combat information center tactical team training. Mike is a senior cybersecurity consultant for Motorola Solutions and has over 20 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity. He is retired from the Air Force and has supported various DHS training and awareness programs over the past 8 years. Now, a few disclaimers before we get started. Thank you again for attending today's course. It is now my privilege to welcome John, who will begin today's presentation. Over to you, John.
All right, thank you, Cindy, and thanks everyone for attending today. We're really glad you could spend some time with us, particularly if you're from other parts of the world. I know we often have folks from international locations, so thanks so much for joining us. So let's take a look here and see where we're going this morning. So in today's presentation, we'll provide a general introduction to log management, along with some basic definitions. So this may be a little bit of a refresher course for some of you, okay, but we will cover the general log information and log management topics. So we'll take a look at some sources of log entries like indicators of compromise and other artifacts, as well as some of the tools that you can use to identify suspicious activity. And we'll also look at a key directive to help your agency in their log keeping activities. Now, there are a few real-world cases involving log management that we're going to share with you a little bit later on. And then hopefully we'll have some time to finish up with a few knowledge check questions and a brief recap of today's topic. So our learning objectives for this morning are for you to, to be able to protect yourself and your organization by using the fundamentals of log management and understanding the critical role logs play in incident response and network security. And also, we want to cover some definitions, as I mentioned, as well as introduce you to some sources and tools that can be used during log analysis. All right, so let's jump in here. So what exactly is a log? Okay, so a log is a record of the events that occur within an organization or agency's systems and networks. And each event, which could be anything from a user logging onto the network to an application or process launching, is recorded as a log entry. And each log entry in turn captures a wealth of information like host IP address, username, category, timestamp, all sorts of things. So in the chat pod, answer this question for me if you would. Can anyone tell me what logs were originally used for? Okay, debugging, all right. Making fire, all right. Error tracking. Okay, investigation, troubleshooting, all right. Auditing, okay, debugging, troubleshooting, excellent. Okay, all excellent answers. Originally, logs were primarily used for troubleshooting, or as you mentioned here, and particularly network problems. But now they serve a much more critical role in supporting tasks like optimizing system health and tracking user interaction on the network, investigating malicious activity and investigating unauthorized access. And that's just to name a few. So they can even show, show us key indicators of malicious activity, such as suspicious logons and unauthorized configuration changes. Now, continuous log analysis also supports one of the concepts of the Zero Trust security model. And Zero Trust security model is focused on resource protections and the premise that trust is never granted implicitly, but must be continually evaluated. Now, NIST SP 800-207, which is the Zero Trust security model special pub, this requires continuous monitoring, inspection, and logging of network traffic and activities. And log analysis plays a critical role in the implementation of Zero Trust because it enables the organization to continuously monitor their network to identify anomalous or malicious behavior. So that covers logs. Now, let's take a look here at a sample log entry. And let me just see a quick show of hands. How many of you have ever seen or accessed or worked with event logs? Okay, great response. So quite a few of you, looks like. All right. All right, thanks for that. I appreciate the participation. What we're looking at here is a simple log entry for a web application firewall. And so let's discuss some of the general sections here, and just, please note that there are various types of log entries, and each one may differ according to the purpose and application. So, they may or may not look exactly like this, and they may or may not track exactly what you're looking at here, but this is a good example. So first we have the timestamp there on the left. This records the date and time that the event was captured. Okay, next we have the priority level, and this will indicate the priority of the particular log entry. And you can notice here, I think it says info as a priority, so it's fairly low priority in this case. The category describes the category of the device or application that generated the log, and in this case we see again that it's a web application firewall. Okay, the source and destination, this describes the source and destination IP address for the network traffic, which is always helpful. Next we have the username or the account that generated the traffic. Okay, and then we have a message about the captured event. So in this case, the message may warn us of a potential web application threat in the form of cookie tampering. Okay, so again, just a basic look at a firewall log here to give you some idea of what we're talking about. All right. So log management explained. So according to NIST SP 800-92, and raise your hand if you've heard of, or if you're familiar with SP 800-92. Anybody done any work with that or read about it? Or okay, a few of you. All right. Very good. All right, thanks for that. Appreciate the participation. So SP 892 describes log management as the process of collecting, storing, processing, and analyzing data from programs and applications or assets that are operating on the network. Okay, now to protect log availability, an organization should consider keeping multiple copies of log data and storing them in offline locations so that the data will still be available even if one copy is damaged or destroyed. Now, logs can then be analyzed to determine if any irregularities or indicators of compromise are present. Now, the data that makes its way into logs can be used to oversee network activity. It can inspect system events and identify specified user actions. Again, this is not a complete list, so all sorts of different things. Okay. Why is the data important, though? This information is critical for agencies to detect malicious activity. Okay, and in many cases, these logs may be the only evidence security teams have in the event of a cybersecurity incident. Okay. So now many of you may notice that this slide identifies another step in the log management process that isn't really addressed in SP 892. And that step is the monitor step. Okay, and it's important to understand and be able to differentiate between the process of log analysis and log monitoring. Okay, they both, they can both be utilized to ensure optimal operation of application and services. However, log monitoring is the process of tracking logs, whereas log analysis deals with evaluating logs. And in fact, in the next release or next update of SP 892, they may provide more guidance on monitoring. So we'll have to wait and see what NIST comes up with for that. All right. So now that we've had a quick look at logs and log management, I want to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to give us some information on incidents. So Mike, take it away.
All right, thanks, John, and hello, everybody. Thanks again for joining us today. So, regarding incidents, FISMA, Federal Information Security Modernization Act, the FISMA Act of 2014, that defines incident as an occurrence that either A, actually or imminently jeopardizes without lawful authority the integrity, confidentiality, or availability of information or an information system, or B, constitutes a violation or imminent threat of violation of laws, security policies, security procedures, or acceptable use policies. And we do, up in the web links pod, have a link to more information on that. Through efficient and effective log management analysis, we're able to quickly identify and subsequently mitigate and remediate incidents on our networks. So, indicators of compromise. Yeah, I guess in the chat pod, can you let us know or put in some ideas on how you can determine if an unauthorized intrusion has taken place on your network? Throw out some examples. All right. Alerts, high resolution, regular logged and times, beacons, yeah. Large file size, yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Increased traffic, yep, definitely. All right, thank you all. Appreciate that feedback. So, yeah, with logs, we can search and analyze the logs to look for these indicators of compromise on our networks, and essentially in IOC, and I'm just going to use that instead of saying indicators of compromise. An IOC is a forensic artifact that can be used to indicate an intrusion or compromise of a host in our network. Careful investigation of potential IOCs can reveal the tactic, technique, and procedure that's used. Can also indicate the severity of the compromise, maybe where mitigation should be applied, and which adversary is attempting the compromise. So, and while I'm thinking about this too, we do have a course on indicators of compromise, so be sure to check that course out as well. But so, for example, let's say after carefully reviewing your logs, you recognize that there was an unauthorized logon to your server at, I don't know, 3 a.m., right? After checking with your administrator, you confirm that they weren't the ones that actually logged in, even though it was listed as their account. So that's a clear indicator of, compromise on your network, and it confirms that unauthorized access happened, and that some mitigation steps need to be taken. All right. So a log source is a software or hardware component that generates log data. For example, a firewall or intrusion protection system, is a source which logs security-based events, and switches or routers are also sources that generate network-based events. And each log source records pieces of information in its log entries, information like host IP addresses and usernames. And these sources can assist in detecting malicious activity, protecting systems and data, as well as supporting incident response efforts. And there are several types of security software logs, like anti-malware, intrusion detection or intrusion prevention systems, remote access software like your VPNs, your routers, your firewalls. The antivirus and anti-spyware software typically record all instances of detected malware, file and system disinfection attempts, and file quarantines. The OS logs for servers, workstations, and network devices also contain important security-related data, and many times the OS logs are used in conjunction with security software. For example, like if a suspicious network activity is detected by your security software, then the administrator can consult or look at the OS log for more detailed information. So it'll accompany that to help validate. But the most common types of security-related OS data are system events and audit records. And so let's just talk about those. System events. Those are operational actions performed by OS components, such as shutting down the system or starting a service. They're generally associated with errors in the software, not necessarily security events, but can provide clues to suspicious activity. Typically failed events and some successful events pertinent to system operation are logged, but many OSs allow the administrators to determine which ones will actually get logged. And then audit records. Those contain security event information such as successful and failed authentication attempts, file accesses, security policy changes, account changes, and use of privileges. And system administrators also have control over which types of events should be logged. Now, application logs, that's, we got that highlighted there, so just talk to that real quick. Many types of applications, including commercial off-the-shelf, government off-the-shelf, and custom developed applications. They also provide a lot of useful log data, and some of the information provided by these types of logs, application logs, are client requests and server responses, which can be used to reconstruct sequences of events, account information like authentication attempts, account changes, and use of certain privileges. And so that obviously is useful for identifying security events like brute force and privilege escalation attacks. Let's see, there's usage information like the rate and size of transactions occurring within a given time frame, and that's useful for security monitoring to detect anomalies and traffic patterns. And lastly, the last thing I'll touch on there is, significant operational actions too, that we see down at the bottom as applications start up and shut down. If there's any application failures, major application configuration changes, those can all be used to identify security compromises and operational failures. And okay, suspicious artifacts. So when hunting or investigating a network, it's important to review a broad variety of artifacts to identify any suspicious activity that may be related to the incident. For host-based artifacts, you should identify and any process that is not signed in and is connected to the internet, looking for beaconing or significant data transfers. You can look for excessive RAR or 7-zip or WinZip processes, especially with suspicious file names, to help discover exfiltration staging, or in other words, suspicious file names. Just for example, like if you saw 1.zip, 2.zip, or whatever, those are suspicious. Also, you can collect all your user logins and look for outlier behavior, such as a time of login that is out of ordinary. Our example with the 3 a.m. maybe, as maybe not typically, nobody's usually on at that time of day, so looking for those types of things. For network-based artifacts, though, we should look for new connections on previously unused ports. We should look for traffic patterns related to time, frequency, byte count of those connections. We should preserve or proxy logs. Maybe add in the URI parameters to the event log if possible. We should disable our LLMNR, or link local multicast name resolution, on the corporate network. And LLMNR is a protocol that allows name resolution without a DNS server. And if we're not able to disable it, we can collect that information on our UDP and UDP ports, as well as the NetBIOS. Anyway, so then we also should review changes to routing tables. We can change the weighting, the static entries, the gateways, and their peer relationships. And I guess the last thing I want to note too is that we should keep in mind that most host-based artifacts and network-based artifacts, they list the ones that are listed on the slide here, that this is not an exhaustive list, but CISA, there are CISA alerts, and they have more information if you're interested. That's also in our web links pod up there. So yeah, that was a lot of information there. But now I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to John to go through a couple of knowledge checks to see how much you were catching of all that information.
All right, thanks, Mike. And let's just take a look here at a couple of questions. So what I'll do is I'll read the question, and then you just choose your answer. Again, you don't have to submit anything. And after a few moments, we'll review the correct answer, and then we'll see how you did. So let me pull up the first question here. And that is, which of the following is not a step used in the log management process? All right, lots of answers coming in, so that's good. Give each guys another minute or two to answer here. Looks like we got some coming in the chat pod also, so thanks for that. All right, looks like the answers are slowing down here a little bit, so let me go ahead. I'm going to broadcast the results and we'll take a look at the answer here. So the answer for our question here is actually authentication. And if you remember from our slide, there were 6 steps in the log management process, which was generate, transmit, monitor, storage, analysis, and disposal. Okay, so authentication really wasn't one of those steps that are listed, but however, authentication activities can certainly be logged. It's just not one of the log management process steps. So, all right, good job. Thanks for the participation. Let's go on to the next question here. And that is, according to FSMA, blank is an occurrence that actually or eminently jeopardizes without lawful authority, integrity, confidentiality, or availability of information or an information system, or constitutes a violation or eminent threat of violation of law, security policy, security procedures, or acceptable use policies. All right, we got folks in the chat pod here. I'm trying to pay attention to those as well. Okay, so it looks like our answers are slowing down a little bit. All right. Okay, let me go ahead and broadcast the results here. And our answer, if you remember, I think Mike read the definition from the FSMA 2014, which is the third option here, which is incident. So I think the the thing to keep in mind with this one is the word eminent. It says actually or eminently, or constitutes a violation or eminent threat. So while we may actually have an occurrence, but an occurrence does not actually have to occur. You don't actually have to have anything occur in order for it to be considered an incident. So just a little bit of things to keep in mind there. So, all right, so thanks for that. Let's get back here where we need to be. And let's see, now that we've discussed the importance of log management in incident response, let's review some of the resources and tools that enable organizations to use log analysis to query for threat activity. And hopefully my slides are going to come back here. Not sure why they're being difficult. Okay. All right, there we go. I knew they would get there eventually. So, all right, let me go ahead. I'm going to turn it back over to Mike to tell us about some of the tools for log management and analysis. So, Mike, over to you.
All right, thanks, John. Let me see. Let me go ahead and flip this. All right, so one of the tools we'll talk about is SIEM. And so because there are so many different types of log sources out there that come in a variety of data formats. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with CDM, but kind of think of this as CDM, where you got all these different security tools out there that's collecting information, but they all kind of speak different languages, so to speak. So we need something that kind of collaborates, and puts it all into one kind of single pane of glass that we can kind of see all this information to help us out. But so that's kind of what a SIEM is. It's a tool that will help us to analyze all this log data that we're getting from all these different tools out there. And so, yeah, we collect it, we normalize it. We're able to correlate the events, identify and prioritize is a big thing. You know, just like with CDM, we want to know where our worst problems are, but it helps us to prioritize, and it also helps initiate responses to events if desired. So all events captured in the SIEM can be used to conduct log analysis to find incidents, which is why continuous log analysis can aid in promptly detecting, you know, suspicious events when we're talking about incident response. You know, detecting that, you know, this time is critical. Time is of the essence. This allows the cybersecurity professionals to perform queries and locate supporting information and kind of time back to those IOCs, those indicators of compromise that we're looking for. So that's SIEM. All right, FPCAP. So in addition to SIEMs, we got another tool that we can use to query logs to identify threat activity. That's the FPCAP, which is full packet capture. Packet capture involves intercepting, collecting, and logging data packets as they move through the network, and this process provides visibility into your network traffic so that you can, you know, look for those security threats. Full packet capture analysis allows you to capture network samples, network exploits, and determine if things like if data exfiltration has occurred. FPCAP is significant because it allows for, you know, that kind of further examination or look into the entire packet conversation, which when we talk about that, you know, we're talking about the actual payload as data is traversing your network, the headers, you know, to see the destination and source addresses and things like that. So, you know, good information helps us to kind of corroborate our events that we're seeing as well. So next we're going to talk to scripts. You can use scripts with specific syntax to parse through the logs, like PowerShell, you know, which is for Windows that we all know, or regex, which stands for regular expression for non-proprietary systems. And we can use PowerShell with get win event or get event log commandlets to search through Windows system events. So I guess let's break this down to system events and audit records, which I think we touched on earlier. But so system events are operational actions performed by an operating system component. You know, like the shutting down the system or starting a service, and these are generally associated with errors in the software, not security events, but they do provide indicators or clues to suspicious activity. And typically failed events and some successful events pertinent to a system operation are logged, but many operating systems allow the administrators to determine which ones that they want to log or not. And you can use PowerShell scripting to to help you with searching through audit records. And again, audit records, those are security event information that lets you know successful and failed authentication attempts, file accesses, security policy changes, account changes, and the use of certain privileges. So we can use the search unified audit log commandlet to parse through the audit log to discover suspicious logons. Yeah, so that's that real quick. All right, so next I'm going to hand it back over to John to tell us about one of the primary directives that deals with log management.
All right, thanks, Mike. So the Executive Office of the President released Memorandum M2131. And just a quick show of hands, how many of you have heard of M2131? Okay, some of you. All right. Very good. All right, so thanks for that. You know, M2131 was created to help improve the federal government's investigative and remediation capabilities related to cybersecurity incidents, and it also established a maturity model which is made up of tiers. And so for the event log management, these tiers are designed to help agencies prioritize their efforts and resources so that over time they'll achieve full compliance with requirements for implementation, log categories, centralized access, and the like. M2131 also provides agency implementation requirements, government-wide responsibilities, and where departments and agencies can get policy assistance. So according to the memorandum, new recommendations for logging include the types of logs to be maintained and the time periods to retain the logs. And other recommendations include logging other relevant data, such as time periods for agencies to enable recommended logging and security requirements, and also how to protect the logs. And logs really should be protected by cryptographic methods to ensure their integrity once they're collected. And then periodically, you would need to verify against those hashes throughout their retention period. So as you can see here on the slide, agencies should be at Tier 3 or EL3 by August of 2024. So in those tiers are additive. So once you reach one tier, you begin adding to the next. So now, some of the logging requirements. M2131 also outlines specific minimum requirements for the active storage and cold data storage of logs. And active storage refers to the data that's stored in a manner that facilitates frequent use and ease of access. And then cold data storage refers to storing the data in a manner that minimizes costs while still allowing some level of access and use. Okay, so I won't go into everything on the slide here, but just looking at the table, we can see that the minimum time frame requirements for retention and identity or retention of identity and credential management logs is 12 months with active storage, and then 18 months for cold data storage. And then similarly, the email filtering, spam, phishing, all those logs have a similar requirement as well. So, as a reminder, it's important for federal agencies to refer to M2131 in order to achieve full compliance with the mandate. And I believe we have a copy of it in the files pod down in the lower left, and we also have a link to it in the web links pod in the upper left corner. Okay. So I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we have a couple of case studies that we want to cover. So at this point, we want to take a look at some case studies involving real-world attacks, and we'll look at how the attack occurred, the impact and the detection steps, and how the organizations, how they followed up. And we'll also focus on how the attacks were discovered or verified using log analysis. And the first one we'll look at is the Dragonfly Western Energy attack. And this targeted a lot of different energy grids and operators in the US as well as internationally. And then next we'll look at the People's Republic of China and the current advisory alert that details how state-sponsored cyber actors are targeting major telecom companies and network service providers. Okay, so let's take a look here. Between 2011 and 2018, the Russian APT, or Advanced Persistent Threat Group, Dragonfly, also known as Energetic Bear, deployed a cyber espionage campaign that targeted major energy sector providers and operators in the US and internationally. And other critical infrastructure sectors were targeted, things like nuclear, commercial facilities, water, aviation, as well as critical manufacturing. Now, the threat actors in this campaign employed a variety of tactics, techniques, and procedures, or what we call TTPs, okay, including spear phishing, emails from compromised legitimate accounts, waterhole domains, credential gathering, open source and network reconnaissance, and targeting industrial control systems. So let's take a look at the steps that they used to conduct the campaign. And the first one is reconnaissance. And initially, the threat actors accessed publicly available information. So they probably just did a Google search, regarding the organizational design and whatever they could find about the network. And then this was used to target their spear phishing campaign. Next, we have weaponization. Their spear phishing campaign used email attachments that exploited the Microsoft Office functions in order to obtain a credential hash. Okay, and they also compromised trade publications and information websites related to process control and critical infrastructure in what we call a watering hole attack, which is really a website that is likely to be visited by the target group, and they do that rather than attacking the target group directly. Next, we have delivery. The threat actors use spear phishing emails with a generic contract agreement theme that contained a generic PDF titled document PDF. Okay, pretty simple stuff. And then exploitation. The threat actors used distinct and unusual TTPs in the phishing campaign, and emails contained successive redirects, and one of the redirect websites contained input fields for an email address and a password mimicking the login page for a website. Lastly, we have installation. And the threat actors leveraged compromised credentials to access victims' networks where multi-factor authentication was not used. Okay, and to maintain persistence, they created local administrator accounts on the compromised endpoints, and then placed malicious files within intended targets. And we do have a web link in the web links pod that where you can read more about this if you'd like. So let's take a look now at how they dealt with it. Okay, so detection and prevention, is important, and according to CISA, administrators may detect spear phishing, watering hole, web shell, and remote access activity by comparing all IP addresses and domain names listed in the IOC packages to the logs listed there on your screen. And I won't go over all those logs because obviously there's a number of them. But I will mention a few. First and foremost, the web content logs. If we recall from the scenario, they did a lot of web-based activity, so there might have been some indicators there in the web content logs. Also, domain name service resolution logs might have been helpful. Workstation internet browsing history. Exchange server logs, as well as email filter and content logs. Anything email related would probably be good information to have. Now, just as an aside, in March of 2022, U.S. authorities were able to leverage the evidence gathered from forensics investigations in order to indict 4 Russian threat actors with executing the attack on the Western energy sector. So ultimately, the initial attack between 2012 and 2014 enabled the group to install malware on more than 17,000 unique devices in the US and abroad. And then during 2014 to 2017, which was dubbed Dragonfly 2.0, the attackers targeted more than 3,300 users at over 500 US and international organizations, including the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And again, we have, you can read about the story of how they were charged. There's a link on the resource slide in the slide deck and also the web pod. So now I'm going to turn it back to Mike. He's going to tell us a little bit about the PRC state-sponsored cyber attacks. So Mike, over to you.
All right, thanks, John. So yeah, PRC, People's Republic of China, and we're all very familiar and understand that they engage in malicious cyber activities for their national interests. But malicious cyber activities attributed to the Chinese government, they targeted and continue to target a variety of industries and organizations in the United States, including the healthcare, financial services, defense industrial base, energy, government facilities, chemical, critical manufacturing, communications, IT, international trade, education, video gaming, faith-based organizations, law firms. They're going after everybody and everything, it seems. And we do have more information on them as well in our resource slide and web pod web links up at the top. But since 2020, there have been ongoing targeting and compromise of major telecommunication companies and network service providers. So PRC state-sponsored cyber actors typically conduct their intrusions by accessing compromised servers called hot points from that are coming from numerous China-based internet protocol IP addresses, right? Resolving to Chinese ISPs or internet service providers. The cyber actors typically obtain the use of servers by leasing remote access directly or indirectly from these hosting providers. That they use these servers to register and access operational email accounts, host command and control domains, and interact with the victim networks. They use the hot points. They use these hot points as an obfuscation technique when they're interacting with the victim network. So makes it harder, trying to make it hard to see them. So NSA, CISA, and the FBI, they consider the common vulnerabilities and exposures list that's here, our CVE list. What we have listed here is the considered the most frequently exploited CVEs by the PRC since 2020, and you can see the list includes a variety of vulnerabilities: the remote code execution, authentication bypass, privilege escalation, remote injection, XML routing detour attack. And that XML routing detour attack, they targeted multiple vendors, including Cisco and Netgear. CISA also released Emergency Directive 2103 to mitigate Pulse Connect Secure product vulnerabilities. So Pulse Connect Secure is a zero trust TLS and mobile VPN solution, and in this directive was in response to a known or reasonably suspected information security threat to the federal government. So again, we have the resources listed on there. And I know we're coming up on our time, so I'll try to move through this fairly quickly. So NSA, CISA, and the FBI, they urge organizations to apply the following general recommendations for mitigation and detection, specific to the tactics and techniques that were observed in the alert. Just to hit on a couple of them here, keep systems and products updated and patched, right? Kind of one of those things. It's cyber hygiene. Immediately remove or isolate suspected compromised devices from the network. Disable unused or unnecessary network services, ports, protocols, and devices. Implement MFA, or adequately protect your passwords, according to the newest NIST guidance, depending on the type of information you're protecting. But and then enable robust logging of internet-facing services and monitoring logs for signs of compromise. And I guess last one I'll touch on is regarding that robust logging, review of network infrastructure access, configuration changes to critical infrastructure service, performing authentication, authorization, accounting functions. So be sure that you got robust logging enabled for those. And then upon responding to a confirmed incident within any portion of a network, response team should scrutinize network infrastructure access, evaluate potential lateral movement to network infrastructure, and implement corrective actions that are commensurate with their findings. And let me just do one quick knowledge check here before we go into our final wrap up. Let's do this one. So which of the following is not a valid log source? And go ahead and broadcast results. And y'all, all of our knowledge checks, y'all have been on the money. But yeah, the keystroke entry. I mean, so firewall, IPS, router. We look for those for log sources generally. So keystroke entry. There are keystroke loggers. So if it said keystroke logger, that could be one, but it just says keystroke entry. But anyway, good job. And I'm going to hand it back to John to just close this out here.
All right, thanks, Mike. Let's get back here to our presentation. And just want to give a quick summary here. We talked about defining log management and identifying some tools used in the process. So hopefully you also learned a little bit about detecting potential attacks through log analysis. And I just want to encourage you all to take the slides, because here's a list of the resources, and we also have an additional resource slide as well. So take the slides with you today and read up on some of this stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. I just want to thank everyone for your participation today, and thanks for attending our webinar. We really enjoyed having you, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. So have a great rest of your day.